All right, guys, it's Tim O'Connor. You guys are probably getting sick of seeing me all over the place. I was on earlier today with my friend Brian LaRusso talking
You get
about a
it?
local guy trying to make,
Got it.
uh,
Okay.
Bye.
an impact in his local community. With me tonight, guys, and as you know, as a libertarian, I think property rights are tantamount. They're completely important to a free society, to growth, to future, and what we're seeing in New York State, guys. This isn't we can't deny it. We can't sidestep it. We have to confront this issue head on. But remember, guys, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's courage to continue that counts. So joining me, my buddy Rich Patel, uh, committee member at large for the LPNY, the chairman of the Legislative Affairs Committee. And guys, we tried hard to make people more aware of the laws, the crazy laws that are chasing people out of New York State.
Mhm.
And guys, a guy who is a living testament to that saying, okay? Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's courage to continue that counts. It's my buddy Robert Force. You've seen him before. This guy got wrecked by politics in Otsego County because he had an unpopular opinion. And they went after him, and they went after him hard. And that's the reality. And we've been polite about it for too long. So, guys, thank you very much. Robert, why don't you give everybody a little breakdown about how things went? And I want to let Rich make some comments too, but I want you to tell your story right now, what they did to you back in 2012, 2013, 2014.
Well, what happened was in 2013, January 2013, they used 2 year Article 11, New York State in rem, which is 2 years to take a property. But at the time, I paid my 2012 taxes, only owed my 11. In January of 2013, Judge Burns, for $1, took possession of all three of my properties, which consisted of 111 acres. Okay. I was shocked. We were getting notices. I didn't think nothing about it because it's 4 or 5 years, and I had a lot of issues between 2010 and 14. Had like 6 surgeries. I got a sick wife with MS. He had a stroke. My daughter in college. I mean, you got to pick and choose. So after 30 years and paying taxes consistently, always on time, we had an issue. So what happened was in 2014, they put our property up for sale. My wife called the Otsego County treasurer. At the time it was Dan Trell, and he told her flat out she was late. She thought it was June 30th is usually the tax date, the end date to pay your taxes. My wife thought it was July 30th. She had issues because of her MS, and she forgot. So anyway, we were only 15 days late, if that. And you have a right to pay your taxes up until the auction. Like I said, 4 or 5 years. And she was screaming. I mean, my daughter thought she was going to have a heart attack, talking to this guy. And next thing you know, I was in a healthcare facility recovering from a full knee replacement because she couldn't take care of me. And I called him up and I said, not for nothing, but how can you do this? I mean, we don't owe 4 or 5 years. We're 15 days late. I'm willing to pay my back taxes. He told me flat out that I could not pay my back taxes. I could not bid on my own property. And after that, I hired an attorney, which was Jim Castani out of Oneonta. And he got a hold of the Otsego County attorney, Ellen Kakoma. And he told her flat out, if anything, this guy owes 2 years of back taxes. And how can you take a property 16 months prior to the auction, which was August of 2014, August 20th, actually was the auction. And, he told her about it in prior times that it's 4 or 5 years. We used to knock on doors. No one knocked on my door. No one called me. But it doesn't matter. I don't care how many notifications they sent. I get the mail, give it to my wife. I was working 2 jobs, a lot of hours, whenever I could work. And, my wife, like I said, she thought it was July 30th, 15 days late. So we end up going to court. It was like 2 days before the auction, I think it was. Yeah, it was the 18th of August of 2014. And, Jim Castani and Alan Kakoma were in the back room with Judge Burns. And he said, listen, I want to handle this like family court, because he's a family court judge. You pay your alimony, it's done. So I thought right away, wow, we're going to be able to pay our taxes. We're going to get our property back. Well, next thing you know, he comes out and he's asking her Alan Kakoma. How many years do they owe? She didn't know. Then he asked her, why won't you let them pay? Didn't know, and said, I'll get back to you at 3 o'clock. Well, any other court in the United States, that would have been thrown out of court. But, they're all friends, the Kakomas, the Burns, and all of them. They're all friends, so it didn't get thrown out of court. They actually maybe put 20 some odd $1,000 in escrow while I was in litigation. She was also supposed to show up at that auction. She never showed up.
Hang on. I just want to be clear about something. I want everybody to understand that you gave them $20,000 before the auction, right?
It was more than that. It was over $21,000. It was in their account, which I had an argument with the DA. He denied it, but I have a copy of the check. I can prove it. It was in their account. My attorney took a check from my money, put it in their account, their escrow account, which means I pay my taxes.
Correct.
All right.
And
all right. So,
why don't you let's I think that people need to understand something, Robert, that I want you to be comfortable talking about, okay? Because here's the thing. You had an unpopular political opinion that you were relatively loud about, okay? And I don't think that you should feel bad about that. And I don't think that grants them the right to run roughshod over you.
Listen,
so please tell them.
I could finally tell you this because there's no more gag orders. I'm out of court, and hopefully it comes out in the document. What actually they came after me for was the fact that I was an advocate for gas drilling. I worked for a gas utility, and all that propaganda that was brought in by people like George Soros, paid $12.5 million to the Ford Foundation, MoveOn.org. They lobbied this governor to shut down gas drilling. Well, not only that, all these movies like Promised Man and Gasland were paid for by the United Emirates and the Russians to have Hollywood put this propaganda out to shut down this gas drilling. So the treasurer worked for a world banker also, by the way. And you're not going to believe this. He went to the same school as George Soros, School of Economics in London, England. So did the guy that bought my property, who, by the way, works for Homeland Security. We think they're connected, affiliated. We haven't proved that yet. But there's no coincidences in life. I've found in my life. I've had a hard life. There's no coincidence how this happened, why they did it. It was all about gas drilling. I had to listen to these people in front of the board talk about gas. They knew nothing about it. I come from a family of coal miners in Western PA. We own coal mines. People drilled for gas. 60 years, there was no problem.
Right.
Why all of a sudden there's a problem? Because OPEC did not want us to drill in this country.
Okay.
Even Snyder.
I want to reclaim my time, Robert. Remember when when we did this show last time?
Yeah, I know. I got something good to tell you about Snyder.
Talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that the issue about natural gas, okay, is ancillary to what they did to you. Okay, back then people were freaking out about natural gas drilling.
Sure they were.
True. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't grant them any special privileges to run roughshod over your life and take your property. That's the part that we need to expand everybody's understanding of. I'm a libertarian. Does that mean they can come and take all my property, whatever I have, just because I want less government? No, that's nonsense. Okay. They need to be better human beings than that. So,
yes. And even the attorney was doing pro bono work with the progressive attorneys that Soros sent up from Manhattan. A lot of people don't know what actually happened here. This was progressives that came into your area. They had all these propaganda little pamphlets they were putting out. I found one in Sydney when I had to go to the hospital. I forget what I did. I did something stupid, got hurt. And I'm looking at this. It looks like 500-pound bombs are going off in the fields. I'm like, what is this? I work in natural gas, And, it's all propaganda. But I want to get back to one thing, though.
Okay.
My friend, is former New York State Assemblyman Dean Murray, a great guy. I want to give him a shout out. He was with me. He actually was in the documentary that hopefully I can get the information from that Ray did.
Yeah.
But anyway, he actually went to the New York State Attorney General on assembly floor and told him about the backdated checks I have where people paid late and got their properties back the same year my property went. And he wouldn't investigate my case. You know what I found out about that guy? Former New York State Attorney General was taking money from Ukraine and big Russian oil too. So this is why they wanted to shut me up. I knew too much. I was out there. You know what? I'll never stand down. And I'll tell you the truth. I have nothing to hide here.
Good.
It's all documented what these people did and what they did in that area. It was
Rich.
all propaganda.
Yeah, let's get Rich in on this. So, Rich,
Mhm.
we did a show with Robert. I think what are your thoughts on his situation? You've heard I just ranted a little bit. Robert's explained some of the issues. What point are you coming at this from?
Yeah, as he's talking, I was bringing up a screen I wanted to show. So
Okay.
yeah, I'll bring this. I'll pop this over here. So this is from the National Consumer Law Center. So what happened to Robert is just they broke state laws, they broke common sense, they broke good judgment, they broke the sense of fairness and ethics, and you name it. He got railroaded right and left. But
Yeah.
New York State, is actually not the worst of all states
Really?
on this
I find that
issue.
hard to
Yeah,
believe.
it's like when it comes to gun control and so many other things,
Yeah,
we're used to saying New York
Yeah.
is like number zero, the worst
Yeah,
of the worst of the worst.
You're right.
But there are some things in New York that could be worse, and there's certainly a lot of things that could be better too. But this is one bullet point here: make redemption costs affordable by keeping investor profits reasonable. Well, honestly, I don't like investor profits. And what that means
Right.
is that in some states, I think 21 of them or so, just about half, and it's done more so in New York, down in New York City. When you're behind on your taxes, they put a lien on your property. And sometimes the local government can actually sell the lien. So they're selling the lien to a for-profit venture capitalist, so to speak, someone who hopes that you're going to not pay off, and they're going to be able to collect fees and interest on you for not paying your taxes. So they're making a speculative investment, and they're betting you to lose. They're betting that the landowner is going to lose and not pay up, and they're going to run away with this money from the lien. And also, being that they have an edge that they've bought the lien, if it does go to tax sale, I'd be curious to see the data, but I wouldn't doubt that quite often the people to buy the lien might end up being the bidders at auction when the property finally goes to sale. I wouldn't doubt that oftentimes they become the preferred bidder to buy the actual property. So
I could see that. Yeah. You can
Yeah,
see
we
it
had a
with the
preferred
straight
bidder.
line kind of deal,
Oh yeah, the preferred bidder. What I call auction steering, where the auction process is really complex and it's very very difficult for anybody but the pets of the local government to be able to bid on the job, bid on the property rather. So they're stacking the deck for, and
Well,
that's
they
where
did stack the deck, Rich, because the guy that bid on the property wasn't the owner.
So
He
they
wasn't
he
the
had a
owner. And I
bidding
confronted
agent
that guy.
there,
They
right?
actually threatened to throw me out of that auction because Uncle Coleman was supposed to show up at that auction and say there was a stay on my deeds and litigation. And I yelled it out. They threatened to throw me out twice. I'm standing there with my knee wide open. I drove 5 hours, just got done with trying to recover from full knee resurgery. Got my wife in a wheelchair, and this lady's trying to throw me out. I'm like, hey, lady, I'm a vet. I'm standing here, and I'm telling you right now what you people are doing is wrong. So now this guy's the only guy bidding. And it turns out he's not even the owner. So they hid this. It's all under the table. They never had a resolution to sell my property, nor to transfer my deeds. Didn't even notify me to evict me. And the guy went in the gate, knocked it down, busted my doors down, threw my stuff out. So,
Oh my God.
there's no justification. They cannot justify to me that there was no collusion and corruption when they took my farm.
Oh yeah, definitely. Just to extend.
Absolutely. Look, that's the whole point, Robert. It's the whole point is they went after you hard because number one,
Oh yeah,
you weren't from here. Number two, and here's another one. Here's another reason why they were attracted to your property. It was mortgage free at the time, correct?
yes.
Exactly.
And
didn't have a bank fee for you. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
he
got
only
no
paid
bank on your side. You
$45,000
got
for it.
nothing.
He paid cash for it, $45,000.
Hey, let me give a shout out to our buddy Ryan Bedford. Ryan is a proactive, like libertarian dude who just he's in watching the show. He's supported you. He has checked out your stuff. So one of the things, let's talk about your situation some more. You invested in you were going to have a documentary done about this, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a minute.
Which part?
Well,
it's not good.
Yeah, you've been a little bit unlucky, I think. Let's be honest, right?
Let's just say that the producer went to Bliss. He went to the county chair, and he told him flat out that evidence we have against you, I would recommend giving this property back to Robert Force because this is going to go on national TV. Told him point blank what you did was wrong.
Right.
And a lot of people up there don't know the story because the papers made me out to be a dirtbag taxpayer.
Well, they made you out to be if I remember correctly, they made you out to be a problem person.
Oh,
Okay, like
sure.
a problem child. Okay, like you were gonna drill for gas, and they're like, we can't
Oh,
let them
yeah.
drill for gas. Okay, so
Yeah.
I remember this stuff. I don't know why these things pop into my head. A shout out to Marcia Stewart.
Yeah.
She has always thought that taxes are equated with rent. She's absolutely right. Like Ryan said,
Yes.
taxes, the way, and especially the increasing rates of taxes, are proof that you don't actually own your property. That basically this is the new feudal system. As taxes keep going up and get more and more oppressive, okay, it's a feudal system where we have to answer to the government, and they use it as a lever and a wedge to keep us from being successful, from
Sure.
enjoying our lives. And they chase people out of New York
Yes.
State with it. They're horrible. It's horrible.
Well, we're a slave. We're a slave to our deeds. Bottom
Yeah.
line.
Well, we are. And Rich, let me send this back to you. I don't think we got, when I see what you're putting up there, did we get through the whole tax liens versus tax deeds thing is adequately for you?
Yeah, we hit that good. And then the next point I was going to hit, and I just sharing this on this link. This is kind of a 50-state summary. And another thing where people get abused is on the interest rate. And New York State is capped at 20%. That might be almost the highest in the country. And there's states that are 10, 12. It really should be down like 8% or so. So the interest rate is just obscene. It should be much, much lower than that. The state should set legislation to cap it so that county and local governments can't get crazy with it. And they also should put rules on what the fees and fines can be so they're not unreasonable either.
I think it's 15%. The ones that were sold 2 years in REM that weren't sold at auction in January 2019, they could get their properties back as long as they weren't sold at auction. They had to pay a 15% penalty. Well, I couldn't get my property back because it was sold as auction. But in June of 2019, they actually gave a property back to a Delvan LLC, a land trust. Okay, it was sold in 2016, and in the resolution, it stated that they weren't properly notified. Well, how do you not properly notify a land bank that someone on that board's probably involved with? I hate to say it, you
don't hate to say it.
It's the truth because
we've seen where our board members are serving on land trusts, our Otsego County board members. We've seen
involved with real
where
estate.
the current elected senator from our area advocated publicly to sell county land instead of putting it up for public auction, to give it to a land trust, and the land trust said, yeah, we'll probably retire it from the tax rolls. Yeah, but we may develop it down the road. These kind of things are happening in these small towns. It's small counties, and because they think it's hidden, and I guess it's happening in Suffolk County too.
Yes, big.
But William Van Helmont.
But the biggest problem I'm having with this, you gave it back to a land trust. So your MO was they weren't properly notified. Had a resolution, by the way, to do that. And in that resolution stated they didn't want litigation. Well, how'd you take my property 2 years in REM? I was willing to pay my taxes.
Because
it's called equal justice in this country. Where's the equal justice in this country? And I'm not stopping until I get my farm back. Bottom line, I don't care how they do it because they did it to a guy from the city 30 years ago. He bought a piece of property and Chuck Behringer bought it at the 2014 auction. I was at the board meeting in 2015, February, where they made a resolution to give that property back because what happened is the sheriff showed up. The guy gets out of the sheriff's car and he says, "You're on my property." While he's bulldozing the property. He says, "No, this isn't your property. Some young guy owned it. He owed 5 years of back tax." It turned out that the county foreclosed on this guy's property from 30 years ago twice without him knowing. They made a deal with Chuck Behringer, the treasurer, Dan Crow, and I heard the rumor was they let this guy pay 10 years of back taxes prorated. So if you can do for one, you can do for the other. Plus, they allowed people to pay back taxes in 2014. I got copies of the checks where they paid late.
Yeah.
Actual copies. And that didn't hold up in court because, let's face it, Alan Kokoma showed up in the appellate court. Yeah. Why is she representing the county? Where's due process when
Where's
your husband's in charge of all the courtrooms? You know?
conflict of interest, due process, all
Yeah,
those things.
I got you.
Hey, Rich, would you mind putting up Brian Stascavich's comment there? It's actually a pretty cool one. I think more people need to think about this. Take the amount you are taxed, subtract how much you benefit from government. If the remainder is positive, you are a slave. Your labor is stolen and given to someone else. If it is negative, you are a slave owner.
Great comment. I read this guy's editorial. I like this guy. He's really
enjoy that.
He's like spot on.
He attended an Otsego County Libertarian Party meeting. I'm looking forward to having him participate in future meetings. He is an interesting, and I'm going to say young man, but he's obviously to my kids he'd be old, but to me he's an interesting young man, and I'm glad to have him in our community.
I like to see him go to Otsego County board meeting.
Yeah. So, Rich, I think we want to transition, and Robert, we'll come back to your story and pepper it in and out here. But I think one of the things that we're seeing in New York State, Rich, and I think this is where you're an expert, and I think I want to kind of turn the show over to you right now to talk about this recent emergency session and what and guys, I'm done playing with these guys. The feckless New York State legislative body, what they did. Do you mind, Rich, taking over here and kind of just explaining this whole last bit of nonsense that we've gotten?
The eviction moratorium.
Exactly.
So what happened last week, I think, was significant, is the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, shot down the CDC extending the eviction moratorium. So they set a precedent to say the CDC doesn't have this kind of power. So that kind of kicked it back to state governments to say, if you expect something to pass muster, you're going to have to do it in your state governments. Not that I agree with it in the states either, but I think that's what the trigger was to call this emergency session to extend the eviction moratorium. I think all of us here would agree it was a bad idea from the beginning. It creates what I would call a moral hazard, kind of an economic term, moral hazard, meaning that you're encouraging people to make unethical, immoral decisions through a government policy. Much as I don't maybe like the idea of giving handouts during the crisis because it could have further encouraged the excessive lockdown protocols, but it would have been better to specifically give people that were proven to be injured by the pandemic money to help pay their rent instead of implementing an across-the-board rent moratorium. So then a lot of people that weren't impacted financially last year, I wasn't. I made as much last year as I did the year before. I wasn't hurt at all financially. A lot of people that worked in construction and other essential jobs weren't hurt last year. And I know some people that made more money last year in 2020. So if you give the eviction moratorium to everybody, there are people that would take advantage and not pay the rent who should. And I think the moral hazard there is now it's not in their budget. They're going to go buy a fancier car, buy a new boat, buy other things that really are not in their budget. And now when the moratorium is lifted, is that person going to now have the proper budget to be able to start afford paying rent again? Even if the government pays in full and makes their account clear for everything they owe in back rent, are they going to have the proper balance sheet now to be able to stay in their apartment moving forward? I think it's enabling of bad habits.
It is. And how does, once they set this precedent of making laws that basically do is you create a moral hazard that encourage people to not pay their money on rent, how and prevent them from the complex system of eviction already. It's already complex.
Very complex.
You can't just evict anybody willy-nilly, especially if they want to stay in your house and not pay you. They can take advantage of the laws. They can play that system. So how do we come back from that? Like, once it's done, even though it's only extended, like, are they ever going to give that power back?
Well, let's see what happens. Because one thing, as I suggested here, what they should have done, and actually they did pass this extension yesterday, but they did add a clause to say that a landlord can take a tenant to court and challenge them to prove that they have experienced financial hardship as a result of this pandemic. Okay. So hopefully some landlords will have the gall and the gumption to do that and find some people that are taking advantage of the system guilty and boot them out and maybe make an example so that people are not abusing this moratorium. But then again, we're only extending it to January. And as you said, the process of eviction can take months and months. So even if someone takes them to court and gets the wheels in motion, it's hard to say if anybody will actually be booted out by January 15th, because that's, that's only 4.5 months away. It typically can take 6 months plus to evict somebody. So, but at least I'm glad they put that clause in there. It makes the phrase we use so often with bills in New York State, it makes the bill less terrible.
Slightly less terrible.
Slightly less terrible. It's like we have so many bills that pass, and it seems like the best that libertarians and conservatives can do is make them less terrible. And it sucks that that's all we can consider a win in our virtual communist Albany government these days. But we can back off the throttle a little bit on our road to the cliff, but we'd like to go put it in reverse. But at least we're slowing them down.
So one of the things that I want people that are listening, and hello, Andrew, thank you for checking out the show, and thank you for checking out the show earlier today. That's us, really appreciate it. But when it comes to these eviction moratoriums, there's big, huge businesses that are buying up property right now. There's tiny, small businesses owning a second home and renting it out, or renting out an apartment in your house used to be an ethical, moral, appropriate way to grow your wealth and save for retirement. And so now the people that are really hurt by these laws are middle class human beings who want a side hustle that they're willing to invest in ownership. And we're literally, guys, we're crushing them. This doesn't hurt the big, huge multinational rental companies. This hurts young men and women who want to move here and build a future. And one of the futures that they may want to build is owning a couple of pieces of property and generating some rental income. And those guys do a good job of maintaining, upkeeping, and taking care of their grounds because they own it. It's great. And instead, what we have is a government that doesn't care about them. And one of the most important ways for people to grow wealth that took long-term dedication, the government doesn't care about them. They're just chasing them away. And it drives me nuts. I'm sad about it, right? I feel like passionate, but it hurts me to see this horrible decision-making going on that's going to hurt young men and women who want to build a life of financial security. One of the tools that they used to use is being taken away from them. I don't know. Somebody else jump in. I'm going to have an emotional moment here.
I agree. And I'm scrolling here trying to find it. Something I just saw today. But there's a lot of narrative and talking points that is inaccurate. But someone could fact check this, but supposedly something like half the rental properties in New York State are single family homes and maybe 2 or 3 duplexes. They're not, big high-rise apartment buildings. So half the residences and those are owned typically by the type of people you're talking about. So we demonize all the landlords, but the fact of the matter is that, the mega landlord with 600 properties that he doesn't take care of, that's the narrative that's being spun, and that's not accurate half the time. And then what this article also said, and I'd like to see how this is going to play out, is that with all the threat of rent control and these moratoriums and so on, a lot of these people are dumping their properties. They're selling. Yes. So I don't know what's going to happen is, why do people rent? I mean, a lot of people say, we can't afford to buy. Well, that's not the only reason. A lot of times people want portability. They don't want to be locked into a house they own. Maybe they're in a temporary job somewhere. They just want to rent for 6 months or a year. So renting is more attractive to them than buying. So that's especially the renters of a single family home. They're probably people that are, maybe military families or people on a contract to do a construction project for 6 months or something like that. They want to rent. They don't want to buy, but they want a nice place. So they rent a single family home. Now those homes are now being put up for sale. So what's that going to do? Are renters now going to buy that really didn't want to buy? Are prices in the housing market for sale going to level out or go down because now there's going to be more houses being sold and less rent. So the economic balance here is going to change, and who knows where it's all going to shake out. But we're definitely going to see some significant turmoil. I think there's going to be shortage of rental properties because so many are being sold. So rents are going to go up. Then the government's going to say, oh, we need more rent control. And that's going to create more scarcity because the landlords don't want to be in the business if the government's got, their foot on their neck all the time and what price they can charge. So this is only going to get worse. Yeah.
And look, guys, I want to be honest. I've when it comes to local stuff, the best way to make money in property here now, because of the government, because of already before COVID, the eviction process was ridiculous because taxes are so high. The only way that people will rent their property out now is to college students or to Airbnb. And the government made that mess, and now they're stuck with it. And so their fix is actually going to only exacerbate that, right? So what's going to happen is there'll be this black market rental kind of system where people will either have to agree to vacate the property or you will only do short-term rentals. And I'm telling you, the government is making a mess of things. It's because they don't listen to people that are smarter than them, and it's because they want power, right? And they want to signal their virtue, but they don't listen to anybody, and they come up with stupid ideas. And this is another stupid idea, period. It's horrible.
They're building a lot of condos here on Long Island, Tritech everywhere, and a lot of people are moving into them from the city, or they're selling their properties, close to the city. They're making a lot of money, and you know what? They want to rent. It's cheaper to them, but you don't even want to know what the prices go for these things. It's crazy. But our market down there is very strong, and like I said, they're building apartments or condos everywhere. And I think they're getting a little bit of federal money there too. They're getting funded. There's money being involved with that, and that's another issue. Tritech and places like that. But
I want to give another shout out, guys, if you don't mind. I love when people leave comments. So Brian Staskavage, and of course our buddies, Ryan Bedford, Andrew Himmel are out there making great comments. Brian, if I recall correctly, actually left what he felt is a more oppressive state and moved to New York State. So what he's doing is he's looking to start this business, purchase some vacation properties. Guys, I'm telling you, all over our area, there's properties falling into the ground. And because of our high rates of taxation, and because of these restrictive rules, there's properties falling into the ground that guys like Brian would be interested in fixing up and buying if they could get it for the right price. But they're not going to do it because I'm telling you, it goes right down to the town level. They abuse you with property taxes. Okay. I bought a piece of property for $15,000. The first year, guys, we talked to the girl at the tax office. She's like, oh yeah, no, we'll definitely lower your assessment. She didn't. And when we wanted to talk to her about it again, she got so rude. It was incredible. And so a year later, she finally lowers the assessment. Guys, I'm not kidding. She lowered it from 95. I paid taxes on a property that I bought for $15,000. $95,000 the property was assessed at. Believe me, it's not. When I bought it, it wasn't even worth the $15,000. It was just close to my house. I wanted to fix it up. It didn't work out. So then she lowers it a year later, guys, to like $60,000 as a big favor. Like I'm supposed to say thank you. And so it started a fight between me and my partner because I thought for sure we would have a much better tax situation and we would be able to invest in it. And it made it a mess. The government ruins things. They do it deliberately. They protect their budgets, and they should be embarrassed. But the problem is they don't even realize it. They won't even listen to a guy like Robert Force or to a guy like Rich Bertel, and they definitely won't listen to a guy like Tim O'Connor. Period.
But it's amazing how the county is building these small little houses. Was that Noniana? And then you're foreclosing on these poor people. What, 50 properties in October? So where do they go? They're either going to end up in one of those homes or in a hotel. Now let me ask you this: who pays for that?
Well, it's even worse than that, right? Because we have a system, and I don't know if you caught my show with Brian earlier.
I did.
We have a system where we do provide housing for people that are in need, okay? And on some level, even as a libertarian, I'm okay with that, okay? So, but here's how we do it. We purchase it from a private property owner who makes their property available to the government for programs where people need housing. So now the government, instead of purchasing that stuff
Right.
from private landowners has now gone into the business of being a landlord. So, guys, when they say, "Look, we did $30,000 worth of revenue from ourselves, and our maintenance costs were only like $10,000,"
Right.
they're lying. They're hiding the
There
cost,
they are.
and they're signaling virtue. And anybody out there who wants to challenge me on that, go ahead.
I got you.
You're wrong. Okay, that's what they're
Yeah.
doing, and that's how they do it. I see DC do projects for
Yeah.
$15,000. They claim,
Yes.
right? And I know it
Yeah.
was based on the amount of people that they had there and the amount of equipment that they had there. It would have to cost $30,000, $40,000, but they can hide expenses. The government takes advantage of us and props itself up to make itself look good. And sorry, I'm ranting again.
Yeah.
I can't
Now,
help it.
I like to have Rich touch on the land banks and his opinion of what's going on with the land banks. Let's see, go to the land bank. You got the Mohawk Valley Land Trust. I mean, I was there in the meeting when they joined that. The board chair brought it in, and I think it's, some of these properties, when they're giving it to these land banks, what happens is it comes off the tax rolls. Now, a lot of the residents aware when that happens, who's making up that difference?
Everybody.
Nobody knows.
divided.
But is anybody standing up to this? I mean, it just seems like they're doing this on a lot of these foreclosed properties.
Trying.
Yeah.
Well, no, I understand. It makes it easy for someone to come in and take these properties. And Rich, you talked about this before about all the riots and everything else. How easy it's going to be to put those in probably a land bank or wherever they're going to put them, or a trust, and then someone's big corporation is going to come in and buy it for practically nothing.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of hazards with the land bank. Just to touch up on a point that kind of Tim brought me to was watch. You see the banner on the bottom that I put on the screen. So Senator Cooney, that state senator, Bill S5377. That was introduced this year. Watch for that to be introduced next year, but it expands on that abandoned designation so that local governments can more easily flag a property as abandoned and then go after it for capture, even if the owner is still around, or maybe they were sick for 3 months or something around vacation.
I can't wait to get those letters.
You kind of mean like,
and these things are all going to, when these bills get passed, what they're trying to do is not only increase the designation for abandoned property, but also accelerate the foreclosure time so they can capture it faster.
And they could use eminent domain.
Yes, which New York is only like one of 5 states that really hasn't taken any action to restrict the post-Kalo world of eminent domain, where you can use eminent domain for economic development instead of true public use. So
that's happening a lot.
New York, unfortunately, is not likely to change on that. I think it's a big disappointment. I'm going to share my screen again with regard to the land bank issue, because I did have another, and I will put this in. I'll copy and paste this into Facebook too.
That would be great. Guys, would you excuse me for 1 second? I'll be right back. I got something I've got to square away.
Okay.
The beauty of broadcasting from your house, but I'll be right back, guys. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay. So this,
Rich, with the land banks, a lot of people aren't aware that this is involved with your regional planning. It has a lot to do. I mean, the Otsego Land Bank Land Trust. I think the president's a realtor.
Yeah.
Your board chair is a realtor.
And Tim Shore, who unfortunately is having difficulty connecting tonight, we were hoping to have him on. He called me earlier today and we were discussing this. There certainly should be better rules in New York State to prevent conflicts of interest. You got to really watch who's on the board of these land banks and make sure they don't have conflict. You should not have someone in an elected government position or even in a hired position in a county, a county department or something, who's also in a land bank. I think that's a big conflict of interest.
Well, we do. We have Kennedy on the land bank, and not only that. Here's an issue that I found kind of like I couldn't believe it. They don't even have an ethics in the county where. An Otsego County representative, Frazier, I was in the meeting, stated that he should have a right to bid on his neighbor's property and any employee. What? You could take advantage of your neighbor, he's falling on hard times, or anybody else. And there are employees there that own 4 or 5 properties. This is a business. Okay? And you can't tell me making $35,000 a year you can buy like 4 or 5 properties.
Yeah, there's something going on.
There's a lot going on in that treasurer's office, and somebody mentioned you need a state investigation. No, we need a federal investigation because these people have too much power and they're tied to the judges. You got your kangaroo courts, and time again, they proved that to me. We'll talk about that embezzlement case in a little while. That was the best one ever.
You have to wonder if maybe the land bank should be under
It
some
should be
supervision
separate.
by the New York State comptroller.
Right. Yes, it should be separate from the county. And there's just too much that can happen there. And I know for a fact that they made resolutions to take these properties off the tax rolls. And why should county residents have to make that tax up?
Yeah,
and that's exactly what's happening.
Some states are worse, like Georgia's worse, but New York at least is keeping it clean, where the tax status has to be cleaned up and all liens cleared before it can be turned over to the land bank. But the problem is, like you say, if the land bank buys the property for $1 when it was really worth far, far more than that, then the destitute property owner is being screwed out of all their surplus proceeds, which they should get if it was put up to a normal tax auction with an ambitious bidding effort, so that it fetched a good price, so your taxes could be paid off, and then the property owner could be at least be kept something. I mean, your situation was political, but I know people here in my own county, people owned a large farm, and one of the couple, and I forget if the husband or the wife, had medical problems. I mean, the number one cause of bankruptcy is medical bills. Right. So that's very common to have people fall behind on taxes because of a medical crisis. So they go into foreclosure. They weren't bad people. They just had bad circumstances. In that situation, sell the property, get as much money for it as you possibly can, and pay the tax off, and then give a boatload of money back to the property owner so they can start their life over again.
But Rich, what they actually did too was, and Betty Ann Swart, I have a video where she confronted the board and told them about, oh, you owe 2 years of taxes. And why couldn't a bona fide homeowner pay his back taxes? But yet the town of Oneonta can go in and have closed bids before the auction and buy these properties before you have the auction.
Yeah, and that's certainly bogus too. There should be an open auction. Shouldn't make these backroom deals, so to speak. That what I call auction steering, where it's supposed to be an auction, but really they already knew who's going to buy the property before the auction really happened. So it's just smoke and mirrors.
They knew who was going to buy my property. He was there a month before the auction.
Yep.
Yes. We're gonna first of all be a little bit sympathetic. There will be times when your county needs to foreclose on a property and sell the property and get taxes. Yeah. Like, I don't want to pay taxes. I want my taxes to be lower. I want an aggressive, stance towards lowering the percentage of property taxes that we're paying in New York State. But I want to point out to Ryan Bedford's comment there. Listen, bud, I'm a libertarian. If we didn't have roads and if we didn't dedicate so many resources to roads, we'd literally have Jetson cars. And I'm telling you right now, if we get rid of the roads, we're getting Jetson cars. So get rid of the roads. Let's move into the future. Okay. Period. I've had it with this pay for my road stuff nonsense. I wouldn't pay for roads. I'd build a Jetson car. That's
You just had a great question from Hamill about, he had a question there. I don't know if you saw that.
This one?
Yeah, right. I want to answer that. I went in front of that board as a veteran, and Betty Ann Swart even said, how can you do this to veterans, the sacrifice record? Not only that, the Otsego County Veterans Advocate confronted the board. I think it was Hanson was his last name. He was a Vietnam vet. He was a major in the Marine Corps. And he stood there beside me and he said, how can you do that to this man? Not even the IRS would take his property like this. Well, he was kind of like relieved of his job a few months later. I mean, this is how this county board works. But there I'm standing, with my wife too. She's disabled in a wheelchair. They didn't care that I was a veteran. Matter of fact, Betty Ann Swart made a resolution to go in that back room to have a vote in order to get my property back. And she came out, she wouldn't tell me, but 3 months later, what they said, because she knew that I would probably be upset about it. And all she did is shook her head that they're not going to give me back my property. Well, she told me 3 months later, she goes, you're not going to believe what they said. They said that What's Mr. Force think? He's going to have sympathy from us for wearing a uniform, for being a veteran? Out of all this, that really bothered me. That really bothered me. That are that low. These people are cowards. They're cowards. They've stolen properties from veterans, sick, and disabled people here. They took their homes.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
took their homes. And you know what? What if that was their home? What was that? Somebody in their family, would they be fighting for them? They didn't fight for me. They didn't care. My poor wife was crying, begging them, begging them. And a woman went in front before me, was holding the flag of her husband who died at Agent Orange, a Vietnam vet. And they even made a comment about that flag in that back room. They were intimidated by that flag. What kind of people are on your Otsego County board? Vote them all out. That's what I got to tell you. Because I asked both sides, the Democrats and Republicans, and just so you all know, I'm a Republican committeeman for 33 years. My own party turned their back on me. Those aren't Republicans on that board. They're cowards. They're cowards. When my documentary comes out, everything's going to come out. And every one of you that didn't back me, that all of a sudden you don't know my story, believe me, I will mention your names. Because my friend asked you on the assembly floor for help, and then you turned your back on me. Republican.
Yeah. I want to point out that a guy like Peter Oberacher or a guy like John Salka, they have a platform that I think if they started speaking appropriately on your behalf, I think that they could influence.
John knows my story. My wife cried to him the first time he ran for office in Otsego County Fair, begged him for help.
I know, and I'm surprised. Honestly, I've been very clear with everybody. I don't dislike John Salka. I don't think he's a bad guy.
No, he's a good man. He's a good man.
It's just, how does he not advocate for Robert Force for at least a fair investigation, not sweep this under the rug, not hide it, not push it out of the light of day, not and let's be honest, Robert, they are hoping you simply go away. Okay. And there are things like
You know what? My chief, he taught me, he was my father.
yeah.
And he told me to never stand down, never quit, never surrender. They got the wrong guy. And just so you know, because I know they're probably watching this, there's longevity in my family. I have an uncle just passed away. He's 104 years old. My grandfather was 95 years old. I will fight you till my last breath.
I
My
love it.
grandfather
Until
lived to
my
99.
farms return. My
You
farms
really-
return
That's great.
because there's such a thing that I stood up for in my country. It's called the Constitution and equal justice that I did not receive from this county board. You're gutless cowards. Gutless cowards. That's all you are. You should all be voted out.
This show is getting hot. We're bringing some
Sorry.
fire tonight, man. I love it.
Listen, I've been a gentleman about this whole issue. I mean, he even surrounded me with sheriffs one time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Talk
I know it.
about,
I know.
you know, and
Because that's the power
like,
of the state.
I'm the
That is-
dirtbag taxpayer. I'm the,
They
I'm
have
the
a-
bad guy. And then when they found out I was suing the county, the media stopped following me.
Yeah,
You know,
they have a monopoly on force and power, and that's and their monopoly is growing.
so
Somebody
one
made a
problem,
comment
though, they
about
don't realize I am the force,
you were Robert Force.
and I am not stopping. I'm not stopping.
I think Shelley made a great point about volunteerism. Okay, and
Mhm.
that there are things that we would take care of on our own. We would work together. It's a form of mutual cooperation. There are things that we would do better for ourselves more
Yes.
cooperatively, and the government gets in the way. Like if you try to fix a road in front of your house, you can actually get arrested, right? Like let's be honest, you can't fill a pothole. You can't
Yeah,
like
right.
these are things that are real in our society, and it's a problem.
Mhm.
So I still think roads are bad. Okay, like honestly, we as a percentage of invested income,
Yeah.
as a percentage of taxes. Okay, I think we invest way too much money in roads, and I'm joking around, but I do honestly. I'm not kidding. I can foresee a time where roads become irrelevant. But we're so married to the system of people buying cars. We're so married to the
Yes.
system of
Mhm.
people fixing roads. We're so married to the system of government provided infrastructure that we can't get there right now. We have technology available. Cars could fly, cars could drive themselves. I'm ready for that. Okay, I'm ready for a transportation revolution.
Yeah, I want to fly plus be amphibious too.
Well, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to do that. To be
Yeah,
perfectly
well, they
honest.
do. They do have things that could do that. I guess. I'm in.
Yeah, and now Andrew too. I want to point out, and Rich, I think you'll enjoy the story. Andrew actually is somewhere in there made a comment about the D Street parking lots in Oneonta, New York, um, where it was like publicly owned property. They grifted it off to a contractor who's going to build artist lofts, and so there's like dental offices and a coffee place and a whole
Yeah,
like
yeah.
plaza there that now their parking lot is
Mm-hmm.
gone. Okay, these people have paid
Mm-hmm.
taxes. They've generated revenue over decades. It should be controversial, but the government just steams right through these decisions, and they're like, look, it's going to be great,
We
everybody.
we
Don't worry
have one
about
in the
the
village of
dentist.
Patchogue.
Yeah,
We have
don't
one
worry
in
about
the
the dentist that's
Mhm.
been there for 30 years. Okay, like
Right.
don't worry about that guy. He'll be fine. There's plenty of parking. That's what they say. There's not plenty of parking.
And to rent there, you have to be an artist, correct?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that we have one where I live, and
Okay.
one of the guys running for mayor, he's a landscaper. I guess that's an artist, and they get
Okay.
cheap. Yeah, and they get cheap rent. And I've heard him one time. They were saying, "Well, we should get free electric too." Well, you want a free trip to Hawaii too? Nobody gives me that. I mean, do I get anything free? It's crazy.
I think that now someone explained it to me, and then I've seen evidence of other
Right.
things. Right. Someone explained it to me as um, artist lofts is a style of
Hmm.
apartment, and that
Sure.
they're basically just going to be at market priced places for people to live. Now, guys, I want you to know that I know that there are 70 houses in Oneonta that are unoccupied. Okay, that people won't rent them out. And again, we complain about not having affordable housing in Otsego County, and the government itself does its best to interfere with any concept of affordable housing, from code enforcement offices to now you can't even collect rent, or if you try to collect rent or you want to evict somebody for not paying rent, you're going to lose automatically. And it's not like you would have won before. It would have been a hard time, and it would have cost you lots of money, and it costs way too much money to rent out houses. So here we are, and now the government once again goes into direct competition with small landlords, people that want to build a future in our
Right.
area. It drives me crazy.
I went to our town board a couple years ago and talked to them, but they didn't really move forward with it. But I think it was 2019. The state of New York enabled rent control statewide. And what
Yeah.
you need is a local. I think the trigger point is 5% vacancy rates or less, and then
Right.
your
Wow.
local government can declare a rent emergency, and then set up a rent guidelines board and establish a rent control pricing policy. And I don't know if any municipalities in New York have done it yet, but they're all able to do so. I was trying to be proactive and ask that they would produce a resolution declaring that they would not do this. I really would like to see county and local governments in New York, stick a stake in the ground and say, no, we're not going to
Yeah.
participate in rent control. Then of course COVID hit and messed everything up anyway. But so that is kind of still hanging over our heads. The state rent control is enabled statewide. If we get past COVID and get past these moratoriums, especially if rate, you can suspect when the moratoriums lift, we're going to see spikes in rent. This rent control policy is now sitting there in a dark room waiting to come out, and it could explode very quickly and give us a big problem, making our problem even worse. We'll be coming out of this moratorium, landlords trying to raise rent to come back, make themselves whole, and the rent control might get enabled, which again will cause scarcity. And if you're not fortunate to be rent controlled, prices will skyrocket. Those few people that are will have the fortune of level prices. So it's to that person that commented earlier, some people will be positive, a lot of people will be negative.
Yeah, for the most part, it's
Yeah.
going to be negative for people that I think are actively pursuing goals in their life. I think that's who it's going to be negative for. And look, I do my best to love everybody, guys. I literally see a need for social services. I literally see a need for welfare,
Sure.
even as a libertarian. Okay, like I buy into. I do think that there's way more efficient ways to deal with it. I do think that, especially when it comes to certain aspects of welfare, I think that volunteerism is a much better system. And we could talk about how our buddy Thomas Daniel Queter um, has met with success and getting much better help from his community than is available to him from the government. So volunteerism can work. And I'm only half joking about the roads. Did you post this about the internet service? Somebody posted under my name about internet service.
I posted that. Yeah, I
Okay.
just thought it'd be something. Yeah, it's something I got amused by a few years back. Is that if you look at how your local roads are funded, you can actually be paying for your local road maintenance through your internet service and your phone service and other things through right of way fees and taxes and hookup
I will
fees.
check out that article.
So,
that would be cool.
Yeah, there was actually, I
cool.
think, a case in Arizona where Verizon and Fios wanted to put broadband service in a neighborhood, and the local government said, "Yeah, you can do that, but you have to repave the roads." Because you're gonna make a few cuts in the roads to put your cable in, so we want you to repave the roads. So
that's funny because where I was in Gilbertsville, I was like a mile out and I couldn't get cable. I offered to get my hooks and climb and hang the wires for them.
Yeah,
I got tired of renting videos, I'm like,
we had a situation locally about cable. A friend of
Yeah.
mine reached out to me, especially with this whole COVID thing and kids having to stay home from school. The Spectrum,
Yeah.
the big business, ran the lines down this road. There's a
Right.
pot of people, about 75 people, that would all buy internet service, but
Yeah.
Spectrum said, it's going to take too long to get around that lake and it's going to cost us too much money. And it's like, let's say it was $20,000 a foot for Spectrum, and so we actually, my buddy started reaching out to the governor, and he got this special dispensation for a local internet provider to tap into Spectrum's lines. So the issue is not like all of the stuff, all the parts and pieces could be there. But again, here's the government granting licenses and buying that Spectrum's cost per mile is, let's say, $100,000, and some other place can do it for $10,000. But they can't just do it, right? They have to get a special dispensation from the government, and then that tiny company still has to get the money together to buy the fiber optics and move it around. It's actually Arnold's Lake, so it's now permissible for I want to say it's REA. Used to be a local electric company, now went into internet service. So now they can run lines and tap into the Spectrum lines because the governor said so, guys. Thanks, man. I don't know.
Well, people are free, but when you use the word free for any product and service, that's always a scary word. And one thing with internet and phone and all this, if your local or county government is getting free phone or internet or something from a provider, there's something, some kind of catch there. There is going to be no or limited competition, and it's going to be hurting you as a consumer and a taxpayer locally. Don't give in to it. If you hear local people say, "Hey, we're going to get free internet for our county government building," no, you're not.
No, you're not.
Go out for bid, pay a fair market price like everybody else, and then you won't be screwing up everybody else's choice of what they want to get. Don't make these special deals.
But people buy into that notion that the government should do and should provide, and then they somehow are immune or don't understand that guys, property tax, when you're paying rent, the biggest component of the rent you're paying. So if you're thinking you're getting a great deal, like renting, understand that the guy that owns the house that you're renting from, most of what he collects from you goes to your county and property taxes. So higher property taxes means higher rent, period. Okay. Unless you get into one of these cushy government deals where they give the property to some developer and charge him, they pay him half of his money to build it, and then he gets to collect rent forever. It's garbage. It's competing with small businessmen, and it's chasing young people out of here. Yes, rules for thee, but not for me. Exactly. But it's chasing the entrepreneurial spirit out of New York State, and everybody's turning to the government for answers, man. It's horrible, guys.
Where I live, the taxes are outrageous. Where I live, Just
Well, they're worse where you live, but as a percentage of income here, okay, your average income in it's Suffolk County, right, or Nassau?
yeah, Suffolk.
Okay, your average income per household is probably close to double what the average income is
Yeah,
for
I
Oswego
understand.
County.
Yeah, you're right.
So
You're
if
right.
our property taxes, let's say our property taxes are 60% of what yours are per dollar value of the house, ours are drastically higher per average income here. Okay. I'm
Yeah,
not saying that my math works out, but I know that ours equate per household
sure.
income
Hmm.
and per value, ours equate to anywhere in the country, okay, in the upstate New York. And these guys, these jokers, like they don't understand these
No, they
simple
don't.
mathematical things. They don't get
No.
them. Guys, I want to do. We're coming up on an hour. I want to talk about some of the other things I'm doing just for a second. Okay, I'm doing a radio show every
Hmm.
Thursday and 4 Fridays a month or 3 Fridays a month, depending on how it works out. Um, it's called the Free Solution. It's available. I make it available on the internet, but it is live on WYSL and WACK. Rich has joined me for one of the shows. Brian LaRusso has joined me for a show. Dwayne Whitmer has joined me for a show. Larry Sharp called in and talked to me for a show. Larry, and guys, you know I'm a big fan of Larry Sharp. Larry Sharp, I feel like he's a personal friend. We really get along. I want him to run for governor. These things are important to me. I think that his solutions, his ideas, sure, some of them sound crazy, but if we actually think about it, right, it's not any crazier than anything else that we've already done. And so because they're new and because they're not expensive and because he's not saying the government should, okay, that's what makes him compelling to me. Besides that, he's a great guy. Robert, do you have anything that you kind of want to pump up, talk about before we go? And hello, Ken Williams. I'm glad you're here, buddy. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I don't. Did you notice on your show today a woman put something up about? Let me see real quick here. In 2018, they went after her, the county, for taxes that weren't paid back in 2007. She paid cash
Yes.
but didn't have a receipt. She was never notified, and whoever she talked to in the county wanted her to pay cash.
That is actually
There's a lot of dirty. Listen, there's a lot of things happening in that treasurer's office. That embezzlement case, that was the best
yes.
ever. That 25,000, and the guy that gave me the copies to the check, he was
Played
the
games,
embezzler,
played
and
games
he
with
was
people.
told to shut his mouth or go to prison. And the
All
guy
right.
that
So
laundered the money in the city, went to Fly Creek to a kangaroo court and was told to pay the money back. And he wouldn't go to prison.
yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that's been happening out of that treasurer's office. And I don't think we should have a state investigation. I want a federal investigation.
Yeah, I mean, we want heroes to come in and save us, okay? But I'm gonna tell you that the only heroes are people that get up and go to work every day and that are gonna fight for liberty, Robert. I know we want someone to come in and save us. I know that we want that. You haven't seen it in your case. There's been so many injustices around here. I haven't seen it. I want that too, but I don't think it's realistic. So how do we do it? We've got to get guys like Rich Bertel and Thomas Daniel
Yeah.
Queter. We've got to get them elected to office. We've got
Yes.
to. That will be Brian LaRusso. That will be the start of us
Listen,
taking our rights back. Okay. Because there is no savior that's going to come in and fix this for us. It's us that has to fix it for ourselves. That is the bottom line. Okay. And I was going to say that is a free solution because that's my radio show, but that is a free solution. Okay. Getting good people in office that care about freedom and that understand simple math, the simple mathematics of chasing people out of the state, that taxes are too high and stuff like that. I'm monopolizing the time, guys. I apologize. Rich, you got anything you want to talk about? What problems are we going to solve next year with the legislative session? What are we going to confront?
Well, I think the scaffold law is going to be hot again next year. We're still going to try to do that. That's the absolute liability standard on construction projects where the contractor is always at fault, even if there's contributory negligence by the employees. It drives up the cost of everything we build in New York State. It's a ridiculous law. We're the only state in the country that still has it. It's 130 years old or something like that now and long overdue to get fixed. Illinois, I think it was the last to fix theirs, which is like 30 years ago now they fixed theirs. So we're way behind fixing this silly rule that made sense maybe 100 years ago, but hasn't made sense in 50 plus years. So that's one big thing. And then, COVID response is just a constant moving target. I was optimistic. I'm pessimistic about the state government, but optimistic in humanity. And I thought, 3-4 months ago, it looked like this stupid COVID dilemma was going to wind down.
Nope.
But I don't know if this is round 2 of government coercion and corruption and lies and propaganda, or if there really is another wave. But
I don't know, man.
There's some of both, but the truth is usually somewhere in the middle.
I heard Kathy Hochul say, I heard Kathy Hochul say, "You better behave or we're locking you down again." Those weren't her words exactly, but it was close enough, okay? And your kids can adapt to being masked in school. Okay.
Yeah, and actually,
they'll be fine.
The masks are going to be a learning experience for kids, but a lot of us last year said, you lock down the schools and you send kids homes, you're going to have suicides go up, you're going to have drug abuse go up, you're going to have learning problems go up, you're going to have obesity go up, you're going to have all kinds of other diabetes and other kids.
Psychological.
We're psychological, yeah. I mean, I've got nephews and nieces. I've seen it personally that have been impacted negatively by the lockdown policy. So. We're playing with fire. I think it was disastrous to lock the schools down and keep kids at home last year. And I think they're playing with fire again to have forced masks. I think a lot of kids are going to have a lot of trouble with it. With a 99.997% survival rate, if they get it, it's like it's less toxic to kids than the flu.
Right.
Yeah. We're throwing kids. Usually we do a lot of government things, to save the children. Usually government overreach a lot of times is to save the children. This is an odd situation where we're throwing kids under the bus. It's a little bit odd. So.
I find it very strange at Stony Brook University, where the government came in and built these humongous tents. I mean, huge. God knows, not one person went in there. Not one went to the Javits Center. Not one went to the Navy ship. And if this Delta's coming, why are they tearing it down? I have pictures of it. They're tearing it down. If it's that bad, why are you tearing these big tents down? They cost billions of dollars probably to put up.
One of my customers is my day job is
control. That's the problem here.
Oh yeah, yep.
Control.
I agree. We agree, man. We do. We need more people like you to wake up to it, brother. I'm telling you right now. I
get in trouble all the time, Tim. You know that.
Go ahead.
You gotta get slapped by sheriffs, then you're really standing up for your rights.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
My day job is HVAC and controls, and about 3 weeks ago, I was doing some service at a local hospital, well, an hour away, but relatively close. And it's part of the Guthrie healthcare system, which is a pretty big system. And he said not too long ago, the facility manager I was talking to said not just a few weeks back, they had 0 COVID cases in the entire Guthrie system. And now they're reporting in censuses that their hospitals are full. They're full. They're overflowing, which they're always overflowing because of certificate of needs laws. There's bed shortages because the government, once again, stepped in and said, we don't need to build more hospitals. We don't want competition. We don't want excess bed capacity because we want to protect the profits of the hospitals we already have.
They're going to make money.
So you could have hospitals with 2-3% COVID patients in them that are overflowing. And I wish that statistic was in the news more. What percentage of your beds are occupied by COVID patients? Not are you overflowing? Are you full? What percentage of your beds have COVID patients in them? And I think a lot of times it's single digits, and we're panicking and saying we need to lock down again. So
we have abused the communication of statistics for political gains. And it's only gotten worse. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Gotten worse. It's not getting better.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Hi, Alice. Thank you for being here. Absolutely. Pretty good making money. A lot of people are making money off of this. They really are. All right, guys. So we went 1 hour and 10 this time. Robert, your story is compelling to me. I think what you need now is someone to help you complete that documentary, right?
Yeah, we're looking for somebody to continue the documentary. I talked to Ray's wife. My condolences to her.
Yeah, of course.
Ray was a great guy,
He was. I
came in,
remember meeting him. It was good.
and like I said, he confronted the board already.
Yep.
He actually interviewed Assemblyman D. Murray, who was the one that confronted the New York State Attorney General, and he gave a very good interview. And she's going to give me that information. We're going to meet at the undisclosed location.
The undisclosed location. All right.
On the 18th, and hopefully you'll be there, Tim, both you guys, and we're going to have some other people there. And I think we should sit down and really brainstorm on how we're going to do this. And I have quite a few ideas. When I get my bullet statements, kind of tighten it up. And
let me ask you this.
If anybody out there knows anybody can do a documentary that's more like an investigative reporter, that's what we really need.
Yeah.
I highly recommend you wear a tack vest, though, because
I think, look, number one, I think that I know a guy that's got the voice to be the narrator. Okay. I'm not, and he's relatively inexpensive right now until he gets really famous. I just want to warn you about that. Like, prices are going to go up, you know?
Yeah, I understand.
I know our buddy Ryan has a question. And guys, nuclear power, we're going to go way off subject. So but we got to keep it quick. Nuclear power should be in our future plans. Generation 4 in particular. He wants to know what a Navy guy thinks about Generation 4 nuclear. Is that something you're up to speed on?
You would say that because I worked in a nuclear power plant for 10 years. And it was shut down on Long Island by a bunch of propagandist politicians.
Okay.
$6 billion plant shut down. And what was ironic about it is you had the Brookhaven lab right down the road, the first nuclear power plant in the United States. It's a reactor, experimental. We actually brought our sources to that plant when we shut down. We actually sold our control rods, fuel rods, to Philadelphia. There was so much loss, and Long Islanders are still paying for that. And it was all over politics. You vote for me, I'll shut Shoreham down. And that's exactly what happened. All these propagandists, and that's the biggest problem with our country right now.
Yeah.
Propaganda has destroyed countries from within, and that's what's happening here. And I don't think you're going to see nuclear power come up as fast as people think.
Because people are paranoid about it, and there's not enough money in it.
That's what they did. They made that place sound like it was going to go off like a bomb.
You're right.
You know, 3 Mile Island was cleaned up. It never blew up, but this is what the propagandists did. And then you had that movie with Jane Fonda. What the hell?
I know, man. I know.
That really scared the people.
This right here may be our buddy William Van Helmond, right?
Yes, that's him. Yes.
All right.
Yep.
So I don't know if you've met with him, but I think he's a good guy for you to talk to. He certainly is a proactive libertarian, just like Rich and I. And Robbie, you know, we're having actually, let's just put this out there. In November 7th to 9th, we're having a big, huge Freedom Fest in Syracuse. I think you should come to that. What do you think? Come up there, hang out.
Yeah, I'll try.
All right, brother.
This weekend's my daughter's birthday, so.
Yeah, but this is in November. It's daylight savings time.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. November, November 7th. I'm gonna write that down. Okay.
It's daylight savings times weekend, and I may reintroduce my resolution to ask the LPNY to condemn daylight savings time as government malfeasance, and it's a horrible thing. You know, like we've got to stop it somehow.
I'd like to give a quick shout out though to Brian.
Absolutely, do it, man.
And Tim Short was with me from day one.
Yes. And Tim was going to join us tonight, but something.
Yeah, I'm sorry Tim couldn't be here, but he could add a lot to the story. He's actually confronted the board on my behalf. I want to thank him. I want to thank everybody involved here that's been helping me. You know what? I put a lot of money in this. I'm not looking for donations. I'm just looking for justice. And if they can do this to me, what they did to me, they can do that to anyone there. Anyone. They can
do it to you. They can do it to themselves, guys. That's the part that they don't realize, right? They think if they're on the winning side, they're immune from the effects of poor governing, but they're not.
My end goal is to have enough money and make a S corporation, not for profit, for the Otsego County Property Rights Coalition that Tim formed, and and be able to have money on hand to help people that are hurting, veterans, sick, disabled, and elderly people, and even attorneys to help fight this county for all these illegal foreclosures. You know, that's my biggest thing in the end, is have a federal investigation on these people. Let's go all the way back to 2006. I mean, they've been doing this for decades. It's a good old boys club. A lot of people making money off this. I mean, I would love to know how many board members and employees own properties from these land auctions. That would be something. And don't foil anything, because you'll never get an answer. Believe me. Even God rest her soul, Betty Ann Swerd would ask a board member, and they wouldn't answer it because it takes legal research. That's what the Otsego County attorney said. How do you not answer a FOIA request? You know, it's just crazy what's been going on in that county. But like I said, I want to thank you, Tim. Thanks, Rich. Yeah. And hopefully I see you guys up there on the 18th, okay?
All right.
Yeah.
I've been up there a bunch of times. I'll head up again. I always have a good time up there.
Yeah, the undisclosed location.
Yeah, at the undisclosed location. Rich, thank you very much. Robert, thank you very much, guys. I really enjoy these conversations.
I appreciate this. Yeah.
And guys, the people that watch, thank you all for joining us, because it started a little dead out there in the audience, but then we got a lot of comments. And guys, I'll be honest, we're not making money off of doing this. It's that interaction, okay?
I like that comment. You see that? Shenango and Delaware County also playing games with their good old boys club. Wow.
Yeah. It happens all over because it's almost hidden, right? They have the power of the government, and they also know, like I mentioned before, they can just outlast you.
How
can they get away with all sorts of stuff?
How can they sell a property without a resolution like they did me and change the deeds? And then when I show up at a board meeting, I have 5 board members say, "What are you doing here? It takes 5 years. You can pay the day of the auction." I'm like, at this point, I'm livid. You tell me what's wrong here. This
so much wrong.
Yeah, it's a shame that this has to happen to people up there, especially people up there. A lot of people don't have the money. They're older, and they don't understand this. The way they were doing the taxes, they were just trapping people.
Right.
It's just
I agree.
Yeah.
So look, guys, I get up at 3:45 in the morning to go to work. So
ready to sign off.
I'm ready to go. I don't know.
Have a good night, everybody.